looks like this may be a good roundup. Get it? 'Cause, may.
This is why I don't let you do the intros, Kevin. Apologies for that abhorrent intro, folks. But we're at the second roundup of Season 7, so let's see what we're working with. Episode 5. Season 7, we need to talk. You're too good right now, and you need to stop. You're making the other seasons feel bad, especially the odd-numbered ones. Ever since Fluttershy started becoming a better character around late Season 4, early Season 5, I would always worry about whether the writers would drop the ball with her with every season that followed. But after this episode, I'm convinced. They got Fluttershy's characterization on lock. With her becoming more assertive, one thing I've been wondering lately is how she'd be able to apply her newfound social skills as a team leader. And it's great that the writers were able to show a healthy balance between Fluttershy asserting herself as a leader and still being her gentle self. There's the argument that she wasn't much better than the experts that she had hired, that she was completely dismissive of their input, which puts her in the wrong because she asked for their help in the first place, and her initial vision was in desperate need of organization. While I would agree with that last bit regarding her vision, there's one very important thing that this argument neglects to address. The experts never ran any of their decisions by Fluttershy before they made them, and that's a serious faux pas when working on a project such as this. You don't just make decisions and go through with them without notifying the supervisor just because it's what you think is best. And I use the term supervisor because that's basically what Fluttershy is, and that role exists for a reason. Regardless of how good you are at what you were hired to do, if you don't have the professionalism to clear your decisions with the supervisor before you act on them, then you have no business being on the project in the first place. You can say that Fluttershy was being too harsh all you want, but the reality is that doing what the experts did in this episode would get you fired on the spot. So Fluttershy was being much more patient with them than she should have been. And because of that, this is yet another great Fluttershy episode. And with no song to ruin it, I'd even put it above Flutter Brother. Episode 6. Of all the sibling dynamics in MLP, Rarity and Sweetie Belle are the most interesting by far. I had almost forgotten how distant Rarity used to be from Sweetie Belle, and Forever Philly made me look back on just how much they've developed as sisters since the Sisterhood Social. We go from Rarity begrudgingly compromising with Sweetie in seasons 2 and 3, then she becomes more supportive in season 4, and by the time we get to season 5, Rarity is fully committed to her sister. On Sweetie Belle's side, one could argue that she's matured the most out of the CMC, and it's one of the reasons why she's my favorite member of the group, which is quite ironic considering that she used to be my least favorite of the group before season 4. From the way she organizes their operations, it's clear that Rarity's confidence and business sense has rubbed off on Sweetie Belle, and she's used it in a way that applies to her own talents. Having a story like Forever Philly take place this late in the show was a great thing, because enough time has passed to show the growth in Rarity and Sweetie Belle's relationship. And we also know by now that Rarity has a penchant for being dramatic. We're used to this kind of behavior from her. And what makes it even funnier is Sweetie Belle's reactions, because she knows that when Rarity gets like this, all she can do is just ride it out. Rarity's overenthusiasm doesn't feel forced because this is the kind of behavior that people who understand her character would expect from her. What does feel forced is the B-plot with Zipperwill and her puppy. I feel that, even for a kids show, the parallel between the puppy and Sweetie Belle was a bit heavy-handed. I suppose the reasoning behind it was so the younger viewers could pick up on the message of the episode in case Rarity and Sweetie's story wasn't enough to get the message across. But the A-plot was about as subtle as a brick in a tumble dryer. I'm pretty sure they would have been able to get it. That aside, I still enjoyed Forever Philly, and it's one of my favorite portrayals of Rarity and Sweetie Belle's sisterhood. Episode 7. We're finally introduced to Rainbow Dash's parents in this episode, and since I got all my petty windy whistles jokes out of my system in my roast video, let's look at this episode with a more critical lens. Parental Guidance had a very strong start, introducing Dash's parents in a way that believably explains why it's taken 7 whole seasons to finally meet them. And like their daughter, they're really dense when it comes to realizing how their actions affect the ones they care about. And because of that, Rainbow's outburst after she's had enough of them was my favorite moment. She was put in a situation where she had to deal with ponies that are just as dense and oblivious as she is, and... wait a sec. Characters that don't see the negative ramifications of their behavior and are too stubborn to be talked down, leading their loved ones to take drastic measures because they know that's the only way they can get through to them? Why does that sound so familiar? Unfortunately, the episode goes downhill after this cathartic moment. It's another example of how the ending can be detrimental to a story's themes if it's not executed well. It was clear that Dash's parents, as supportive as they were, had no concept of boundaries or personal space, and all Dash needed was a little restraint from them. But the episode instead chose to paint her in the wrong for demanding basic respect. And that's really not the best message to send, especially to the target demographic. Just because your parents support you doesn't mean that they have a license to be as obnoxious as they want to with their support, and it's not wrong to ask for them to pull back a bit. On top of that, the third act also uses Scootaloo against Dash, playing the guilt card by using her lack of parental support as a reason for why Dash shouldn't be mad at her parents, and I have got to call BS on that. Just because someone is in a worse off situation than you doesn't mean that you can't be dissatisfied with your own. It's the same kind of logic people use when they say, well, there are children starving in other countries, so you can't complain about my bad cooking. Parental Guidance's botched moral doesn't reach Magic Sheep levels of bad, but it does cripple the episode and makes what could have been a great story into one that's okay at best. Episode 8. Big Macintosh has definitely grown on me in recent seasons. Hell, Brotherhood Social was my favorite episode of season 5. So after reading the synopsis of this episode, I was looking forward to it. I like that the show has put in small efforts to flesh him out a bit, and he's come a long way from the one-note character he used to be. But my favorite part of this episode has got to be Featherbangs because of how much of a tool he was. He may not be all that likable, but we know that he's not gonna end up with Sugar Belle, so it makes all of his attempts to woo her that much funnier because it's clear from the way Sugar reacts to him that he doesn't have a chance. And what's this? A song that actually serves the story and isn't terrible? I almost forgot what one of those sounded like. If you liked Hearts and Hooves Day or just enjoy fluffy shipping stories in general, Hard to Say Anything is right up your alley. Which brings us to the end of the May Roundup, and I feel that season 7 is still on a roll at this point. With only one episode that ended on a sour note for me, this month's episodes either had great character moments, great comedic moments, or both.
Hold on a second. If Sweetie Belle is supposed to be more mature, how come she used a romance novel as an inspiration to help Big Mac?
Rarity used a detective novel to help Rainbow Dash 2 seasons ago. Besides, we're part of a community of mostly grown adults that review and analyze a show made for little girls. We're in no position to judge. So what did you think of the May episodes for season 7? Storm that comment section below or bug me on social media. And consider supporting me through Patreon or PayPal art commissions. Until next time, keep it sketchy, folks.